Hello, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi, and this is Thursday night, and I hope that you can bring some of the stitching materials to stitch together. This is the live streaming where I stitch Sashiko and talking about Sashiko. This is not a tutorials or webinar or some other things to teach, so please bring something to stitch together, and then I will not talk about any technical things. Like, I'm not going to answer the technical questions, but I'm always happy to have the cultural question that I can elaborate the stories. Today's topic is I'm going to bring some topics from the previous Instagram post, which is Insitsu. It's a Japanese word I would like to explain somehow, and I don't know if I can do that. But at the same time, it will probably explain a lot what I am trying to convey. So, yep, that being said, I will change the camera. Your questions, comment, requests are always appreciated. Yep. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, when I was talking to my friends about Japanese school culture, it's kind of like, it kind of clicked in my mind why, like, I am reacting to some of the trend in English, in Sashiko introduced in English, and some people may think that it's the message to somebody specific, but I try to not to make it somebody's, like, it is not my intention to attack some specific organization or some specific person, because it's more like a reaction to the trend, not the person or the organization. At the same time, I really do not know. I cannot like pinpoint what is the it that I'm reacting to. So I'm still searching, and finding that would be a very, very, very important for me to understand myself as well as explain what's going on. And then that word came into my mind. The word is Insitsu. It's a very negative word in Japanese, so it's not really something we should be proud of. I keep saying that I love Japanese culture, and I do actually love Japanese culture, Japanese, everything about Japan. I like it. At the same time, I'm not saying they are always great. There are things that I wish they were different, and there are things that I would love to, not love to, I would like to avoid. So this Insitsu is one of those, yet we have to very accept that it exists. And if we were to directly translate the word Insitsu to the English, it's gonna be insidious. But it's not gonna probably explain the whole. So let's see what I can do today to explain that. But that's the reason I do not move to Japan. Although I like Japan, I keep saying I want to go back to Japan. And, I don't know if I can. But, the US is a mutual place for everybody in my family. So the US is, of course, the first choice. But Japan is also the choice. And there's a reason that I do not make a decision to do that. That's one of the reasons is that Insitsu. Where to start? It's kind of like a byproduct of being indirect. And one of the great thing about school system in the US, something I really admire, is the system to prevent like a bullying or injustice in the school. And I really admire that, and I'm very happy that my daughter can be in that culture. But in Japan, there are still a lot of bullying and also some. So that bullying in the US is a little different. Well, I mean, it can be the same, but in my understanding, it can be a little more indirect. And when it is done indirectly, we sometimes use the word insitsu, which is the insidious for that matter. But we don't say out loud directly, and it's more like the cultural thing. So even if I feel like that it's not something, even if I have something to say, I would hide it. I might say it privately, I might say it to somebody else indirectly, but I am not going to tell that person directly because that's not the culture. And Sashiko is all about that too. Last 40 years, 50 years, or 60 years, well, as long as I know, like 50 years or so, I do not know one single dispute or fight in between the different kinds of Sashiko. No lawsuit, no nothing. Just, do they like each other? I don't think so. I mean, some people like some certain Sashiko, but because they're different, they're not really, love each other. But we never had those fight surfacing. That's because of this this little indirectness. And that's probably something that I have to somewhat explain. So right now in English, there's so many opinions about Sashiko, which is right or wrong. By defining one Sashiko right, you are kind of defining the other side as the wrong. That is already very non-Japanese, yet they are skipping that Japanese culture, yet they call themselves as if they understand everything. And why can they do that? Because they speak English, because English is quite a strong language, and what they say can be the rules, can be the right answer for that category. So they're skipping the cultural part, and then they focus on technique and design and outcome. So they are part of Sashiko, but they are not explaining the whole. And because they can, like, they bypass that just because they are not Japanese is quite. I don't want to say upsetting, but it's very もやもやするっていうのが、it's Japanese is もやもやする。I feel it's a very unfair things to do. There's so many Japanese who has been practicing Sashiko, yet they do not have a voice because of this, because of the indirect conversation, indirect communication. That's how we develop the culture. That's how we developed and preserve the culture. And the culture is the outcome of those preservation. So by the culture being exposed to those directness, it could lose the kind of essence. I'm not saying that everybody should be indirect in Sashiko, but there is something that we feel a little beauty in that indirectness. And we probably appreciate that. We don't appreciate the indirectness as is, but the beauty or aesthetic perspective from that indirectness is very important part of Japanese aesthetics. I hope I am speaking something. It's really difficult, and I don't know why I kind of thought of this word, but I feel it's very direct in this country, and I am trying to follow that because I am part of it. But when it comes to Sashiko, that directness is quite in somewhat violent to kind of override or destroy the balance of those subtle cultural background. It's like it might be another extreme analogy, but let's say you have like a fruit, very sour fruit, like let's say orange, and that orange has a little bit of sourness inside, and sourness is or bitterness. The bitterness itself is not always the great thing, but because of that bitterness, the sweet comes more strongly. And if the goal is to enjoy the sweetness, logically speaking, you can just pour over the sugar over it and then it's going to be extremely sweet. But that's logic, but that's direct. But that bitterness is something indirect in this. So because of that bitterness, the orange become orange, yet we focus on the result of getting sugary or sweet things, then do we pour the sugar on the fruit? And it might be losing something like flavors and stuff like that. And again, this is extreme analogy, but I feel today's Sashiko introduced in English is orange sugar, like not a sprinkled, like more like soaked into the sugar. And again, there is some dishes with oranges in the sugar, like compote or like jam is some of those things. So I'm not saying that sugar and orange combination itself is wrong. It's just not explaining the whole experience of eating orange. That bitterness is not good by itself, but it's gonna add to some experience. And that indirectness in Sashiko is something that makes it more whole. Then you may ask the question, how can I enjoy that bitterness in Sashiko? That is, I don't know. I have to think about it. But at the same time, probably finding your own Sashiko stitches itself will help you to find your own bitterness too. So I hope. Hello? Check. Wait. I did not check the audio. Is the audio working? Right. Oh, okay. It is working. Oh, that was really scary. I talked a lot. If it was not recorded, that's a very sad thing. It's probably my goal to explain what it is. And I'm not gonna say that it's not Sashiko because you don't have that bitterness. And if you wanna enjoy the fruit with sugar on top of it, that's perfectly fine. And that's part of the experience. Just I do not want them to try to get rid of that bitterness because they think it's not necessary or because they don't even acknowledge it. it's really difficult. I'm trying to think the way to explain that, and I will probably keep writing that on Instagram or Patreon too. One example would be that. Mandy, thank you so much for the comment. I'm thinking about processed food. Like non-Japanese English-speaking teacher of Sashiko is the processed version. Maybe so. I might. I mean, it's kind of really rough and very violent categorization if I say that non-Japanese English-speaking Sashiko teachers are all processed version of the outcome. It's quite violent. I don't want to say that. But in actually, it's a very important phrase. So I'm gonna say it out loud. But being Japanese itself is not going to qualify to be the teacher too. So it doesn't have to be Japanese. I mean, it does not have to be Japanese to teach Sashiko, in my opinion. Which means that being Japanese itself is not the qualification itself. So for that, I have to kind of revise what you wrote, but it is pretty much what I'm trying to say, I guess. I'm sleepy and also having a hard time joining English word. Well, thank you so much for joining from probably Europe if you're sleepy. Or, well, yes, in Japan it's like morning, so. The processed food itself there's nothing wrong with the processed food, but it's not the whole culture of the food industries. Especially if if they are going to advertise themselves for the how to cook, like cooking class, I want the teacher to be able to use the knife and cutting board, basic tools to cook. I don't want them to teach how to microwave the processed food, because that's not a whole experience. Cooking requires cooking, not microwaving. If the goal is to just have a full belly, probably the result doesn't. I mean, the process doesn't matter. But I'm in the Philippines. I'm listening. Wow, dog. Well, at work. Thank you and sorry. I wish you could so too. At work, is it okay? I'm sorry. I'm not gonna here to judge anything. I'm sorry. I don't want you to get into trouble. I'm not gonna. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say anything. Oh my god, beyond sleepy. Beyond sleepy. You probably changed the name too. Thank you so much for joining here from Norway. Yeah, the time difference is one something I have to apologize and I have to. It's quite difficult to. Oh, sorry. But if it's like a live session, I'm happy to adjust my time. But for the live streaming, I kind of have this time only, or the morning, which is probably better for the European people in Europe. Where's the Ari? Where is the pink cushion? That's not the pink cushion I use. Oopsie. Ari? I had it today. This happens sometimes. Please don't do that. Oh, there we go. It was on the floor. Norway seems to be a very good place to visit. It's so... I would like to go somewhere. Like, because of my spouse's work, we cannot... Well, we cannot. We cannot go travel over the holiday. I mean, we have a cat with a very huge trauma, so we really do not want to leave her alone here. Even with the pet sitter, we do not want to leave her alone. So we wouldn't probably go to anywhere else anyway. At the same time, we don't really have. I mean, she's on call, so she has to be. I think within 30 minutes driving distance, which is probably like 15 miles radius until next week. So it's our like normal thing. We don't celebrate Christmas anyway. Well, because we're a Jewish family. So it's okay for us, but sometimes I wanna go somewhere. I would like to go to travel too. I guess I mean they learn Sashiko, but they are teaching it based on their own understanding and culture. It went through a kind of process, but the machine is their brain. Yes. It's very, very, very. That's exactly what I'm pretty much saying. And so their version of Sashiko is again not wrong, but it's simplified because of their understanding and culture. So what is wrong is to define their understanding of Sashiko as the whole picture of Sashiko, which is pretty much everything I'm saying here and there. So frozen food is not only the dinner, or even like cut fruit. No, I want everybody to learn how to use the knife and cutting board. I hope it's not too much. Well, I know it's not too much to ask, but some people don't care about how to use those tools if they can make the final product. For those people, I think the tool does not really matter much, or ingredients does not matter too, because they already have the outcome as the expectation. So it is not so important to pick the right tool, right supplies, ingredients, groceries. So, but we don't say that out loud. I am saying out loud because I'm trying to get out of those comfortable zone as a Japanese. Because I say these kind of things everywhere, here and there on Instagram, it can be quite kind of something they don't want to hear, something uncomfortable to them to hear. And they sometimes get a very negative comments. An interesting fact, though, is that I have never ever, even one single those like a negative word or challenging comment in Japanese, written in Japanese or spoken in Japanese. Does that mean that every Japanese Sashiko artisan like what I say? I don't think so. I say something, sometimes I say things that they wouldn't like. And they might not be listening. At the same time, I don't think nobody's listening too. But that's the culture. That's the culture that we really do not confront, even if look, we kind of held in. So telling others what is right and wrong is also very risky things to do. If it's like a small group circle, that's perfectly fine. We do that a lot. But when it's online or like general public, it's very, very, very non-Japanese things to do. Yeah, it's like has been 6, 7 years, and I share the information in Japanese too. But yeah, I have not had those. Well, because I received those negative comments in English, my post in Instagram gets longer and longer. Well, hello from Toronto. Thank you so much for coming. Oops, I'm out of steam. The reason I'm out of steam is that I had another meeting before this live streaming, and I had been talking like 2 hours by now. It was like a casual meeting, like friends talking, and we chat a lot. I was listening the beginning, but I was talking about myself a lot as well, so it got it all. Yeah, talking for 2 hours is a little too much. I mean, talking, that was more like a conversation, and it was more easier for me to have the conversation. I had reactions. Here, I have to, not have to, but I'm kind of talking to myself, so it's a little different. But if you find me like out of steam a little bit, that's because of that. But if you have any requests for me to talk about, I'm happy to do it. I hope that I kind of explain about Insitsu a little bit, but I'm still in the process of learning. I'm in the process of trying to understand what's going on. But that word insidious is not quite, I don't think it's a good fit. Indirect, that's probably the key to indirect. It is not okay for us to say that is wrong to them, even if that's what they believe, even if that's what I believe 100%. It's quite risky to say that, to state that clearly. Hmm. But in any cases, I trust and I listen to those who actually stitch. That's the whole point. If you stitch, if the person is stitching, regardless of the difference in culture, stitching style, anything, but as long as they stitch, I think we can have a very good constructive conversation. For those who does not stitch, then we have to probably take another route. And I'm not saying like, those who do not stitch are bad. There are many, many Sashiko fans who do not stitch. They just like Sashiko's itself. And but those people do not teach or speak on behalf of other Sashiko artisans who actually stitch. So if somebody's teaching without stitching, then that's a problem. That's the kind of wrongness I'm talking about. Whew. Wait, so is this gonna be the last live streaming for this year? Yes, it will be. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. Wait, yes. I usually do not do the live streaming over the new year, so I don't think I will do that. Oh, but yeah, still, today is the last live streaming. I'm glad that I could come. Yeah, this year has been so quick as always. Next year is going to be a quite interesting year too, for two reasons. One, my workshop schedule is almost packed for the next year. At this moment, we are planning for 2025 now. I'm not accepting. I am accepting the offers for 2025. So I will have a little more time to teach next year. And I hope that I can make the Japan tour, Sashiko Japan tour, happen again. I'm really, really willing. I'm trying to find a way. I probably will. So those two are gonna be a big news for the 2024. Not a big news, it's like a big event. I will be in, well, first Florida, and then QuiltCon in North Carolina, then Vermont in April, and then the Minneapolis in June. So for those are the one, two, those are the workshop. It's already planned. The first time to go to the middle north. How do you call that? Around the Chicago, Minneapolis area. So it's quite exciting to be there. Yeah, it's actually the first time. Most of my workshop places are East Coast. So thank you for the workshop thing. I may add here and there, but I try to not to like occupy my schedule with just teaching. It's something I learned from the previous year and this year that I need some time to stitch to keep my sanity. Whew. Well, I hope you will. Like, it's very common for the Japanese, for us to make the resolution the beginning of the workshop, the beginning of the year. So next workshop, not a workshop, come on. Next live streaming next week I will have to bring the resolution, my resolution for 2024. What would be good? What is my resolution? Whee! Oh, by the way, this Asanoha stitching is almost done. By me saying almost, it's gonna take another 3 or 4 months to complete the almost part. But it is almost done. Most enjoyable part of this running stitch is over. So it's all about completing the pattern. So it's gonna take some more time to finish it. But the good news is that it is ending. I don't have to stitch Asanoha anymore. Well, that's not a whole point. That's not a whole point. The whole point was that to explain or to prove that a pattern is not the main purpose of Sashiko. So the pattern doesn't matter. I can stitch the same pattern forever with the same enjoyment, same joy I will have, same happiness no matter what. Um, in reality, if you stitch the same pattern for 100 meters with this thread, patterns matter too. I mean, yeah, it does matter. I still enjoy the running stitch without the pattern probably, but it does matter. I don't want to see the same pattern anymore. And now, there we go. Just a second. Come on. Just a second. Oh my gosh, it's so like I don't know when I had last time like this quiet live streaming. I'm sorry. I usually talk non-stop, but my live streaming used to be very quiet. Like I've been doing this last 4 or 5 years, right? And I haven't changed much. It's always like that. At the same time, I think last 5 years my English got a little bit improved. As the result, I can talk to myself and I can kind of sustain those kind of radio kind of thing. So I usually don't stop talking. I don't try to make the silent mode. But for the first, like in the beginning, I don't know how many people here are watching the live streaming from that back, but it was quite bad. It's not good right now yet, but it was very, very. Well, I mean, the whole purpose was to show, to stitch together online. That was the whole purpose of this live streaming. That it has been, that is still the whole purpose of this live streaming. I kind of don't say that anymore, but the original and whole purpose, still the whole purpose of this live streaming is to make a place for us to stitch together so that we can kind of get together every week. And if you become regular, I would know that something may be wrong if you don't comment for like a few months. So that is kind of like a place to be. And I don't know who you are at some point, but that's kind of the connection that I can get, we can create throughout internet and stitching. And that was my whole point. And that is still whole point to keep doing the live streaming. I'm probably shifting the point a little bit from that to sharing stories more. So I kind of feel like I have to keep talking, sharing something. But the original purpose was to make a play. So there was actually the live streaming where I don't talk much. I was just stitching in front of the camera, like no music, no nothing. What's the Japanese word to the gathering? Ibasho. It's not exactly the word, but that's the word I was trying to use. Ibasho is the word for that. Wow, today there's a pretty significant delay in the comments, so I'm sorry if I'm talking about something um, in a delay. Why did I stop saying that? I will restart saying that next year. いい場所. Yeah, there you got it. And I think that's really one of the principles of doing Sashiko. Making a thing is, of course, important. At the same time, more like, being part of something. In this case, ibasho. Being part of the ibasho is what Sashiko can offer. And I would like to make sure that it's there. Oh, I'm sorry, it's so warm here. I don't know if your place is warm too, but I think in the North America it's quite warm winter. For some reason I get sleepy like spring. Is it spring already? I don't think so. But I kind of cut my finger here. I don't know if I explained that before, but I probably explained that in Japanese live streaming, but I cut my finger a little bit. And this band-aid is quite awesome. At the same time, it's really bothering when it's stitching. It's like a choice of having the bloody fabric or having a little unpleasant experience. I'm yawning. Oh my gosh, that's really not so often. But yeah, although I said like I'm willing, I'm trying, but I will my best to make the Japan tour happen in 2024. I have been talking about it to my family as well as those artisans in Japan, and I thought I had to wait until my environment, my condition changed a little bit so that I don't have to put the burden on my family here for me to go to Japan. At the same time, I realized that, well, it was obvious, but I kind of realized strongly again that the time is kind of limited. Those who I asked to meet in Japan for the Sashiko workshops or even exhibitions, stuff like that, some like very like the whole purpose of going to Japan together. And they are not really on the surface of the internet, they are not publishing books, and they are quite elderly, they are old. So they're very energetic. They're very energetic, they're very healthy, they're very in a good condition. At the same time, the time is actually limited. So I don't want to like let it go and wait 10 years or 5 years until the next Japan tour. So I am organizing, I'm doing my best. I need a little more time to organize it, but I will announce if I can do it or not. So for those who hear the Japan trip for the Sashiko Japan tour for the first time, I will try again. I will try to remember after this to put the link on somewhere for the waitlist. if you joining the waitlist right now, you may probably not be able to join this year because I mean next year because it's quite long line. But you never know, and also you will get notifications by the order you sign up. So I will see what I can do. Yeah, when I was talking to my mom, she kind of said like, it's not gonna be there forever. And that's kind of true. Not a kind of, that's really true. It's unfortunate, but that's true. So the Japan tour is very much the tour that I take people who like Sashiko to Japan. So it's not that complicated. It's not really any complicated tour. It's not busy. It's just the purpose of that trip is to stitch and meet people. And that's it. We will have some like sightseeing time, but sometimes it's not the goal of sightseeing. Sightseeing is not the goal. So it's not gonna be like, with the tour guide waving the flags and going to some tourist spot. That is not the type of the tour that I'm gonna organize. It's more like stitching and with people there. It's like here, more interactions in Japan with Japanese people. Japanese Sashiko artisans, or actually the people who stitch in Japan too. It's not gonna be a good tour for those who do not do Sashiko at all. But from the previous one, for those who enjoy Sashiko, I think that's gonna be like a lifetime experience. Okay. Let's see if I can do one more thread. Yeah, let's do one more. So I'm doing kasane everywhere I stop and start. And it works. It works, and this does not look like both side as the finish side because I have not clipped the thread yet, but it's gonna look both side as the finish side after I go through several processes, like cutting the thread off, um, activating kasane, and stuff like that. And I will, of course, show you the outcome after doing everything. It's just gonna take some time to do it. Expect the summers. This summer is my goal to show everything possible. So there's nothing wrong with making knot, but we don't make knot. Ah, see? Because I did not make a knot, it happened. And also because I'm sleepy, it happened. Don't do that. It's just a waste of time. And don't repeat it. That's very bad. I said I'm not gonna make a knot, but it happened to be knot. That's the accidental one. I guess. Well, not guess. one day I hope that I can go to travel over the holiday. Well, I might be stitching anyway over there. For that I don't really have to go probably, but I'll probably bring stitching and then I'll be stitching anyway. So it doesn't really matter where, I guess. But just the idea of going somewhere is kind of exciting, isn't it? Although, although we will say that our house is the best place to get relaxed after the trip. It's just the idea of going somewhere is always a good thing. Yeah, last time that I traveled was the Japan trip, and before that, I don't remember. If it's not business, it's really, really long time ago. I travel when I have a workshop, but that's really not the same. I don't. I have a switch that I have to press in the morning of moving, and until the end of the trip. After I come home, I turn that switch off. So many people, well, not many people, well, some people think that I'm very outgoing or extrovert. Yeah, that's the word, extrovert and outgoing. Very opposite. When I don't really act. I don't think I can act. But I try my best to present what I can when I do as the work, and that's my responsibility too. It's not really the Japanese way to teach. Maybe being introvert and then let them watch and then they have to figure it out themselves. That's one way to teach. At the same time, it's not a good way to teach in another culture. So I try to do my best to be the performer for that matter. Again, I'm not really performing, I'm not hiding anything, it's just a different mindset. So after the workshop, I become like extremely introvert. Like I'm not gonna move anywhere. I'm not gonna even go outside for shopping. Only time I go out is when I give my wife a ride or something. And I think that's okay to do. All right. Oops. The light went off. There was a little power outage happened, so I don't know if the live streaming is continuing. The computer itself has the backup battery for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so it's not gonna shut down by just one power outage, but it happened right now, so it might be. I hope that it did not cut it off. Oh, we're still here. That's good. All right, but I will stop the live streaming about after this many stitches. I mean, after this much thread. If you're watching this live streaming as the archive, you can leave the comment with a request or questions about Sashiko culture. I'm gladly take that question to the next live streaming and I will make it like a topic to talk about. And again, the whole purpose of this live streaming is to stitch together. And I sometimes say that comments are helpful to elaborate the stories, and it is very helpful. At the same time, if if you enjoy stitching while listening to my mumbling, that is also the best thing I can ask for. So I saw a little blink of the light, but no interruptions in the stream. Great, thank you. Yeah, there was a little blink. My daughter stood moving, which means my daughter was awake. She's supposed to be sleeping by now. She's supposed to be sleeping by now. She was in the bed for sure, but she was not probably sleeping. And I understand that she got a little freaked out. But, well. I don't know when is the best, like a, reasonable time for the kids to go to bed at this age. I don't remember my age. I went to bed probably 8 or something. I don't remember. I woke up very, very early to do what I wanted because my parents were both sleeping in the morning. Yeah, night was not my time in my family because they were all awake and then they were doing something and they were kind of like micromanaging too. So I always woke up in the morning early and did what I wanted. But in today's kids, I don't know. I have been stitching on denim and through multiple layers with patches, and I think my fingers need a break. Yeah, that's denim and a few layers are very, very, very at the same time. It's a little bit of well, probably patches are different. The stitching on the denim, we probably can relax it, and then fingers power does not matter too much. But patches are probably, it really depends on the combination. When I use the good combination of the patches, fingers are not, like, sorry, the pressures are not that important. Like, I can relax. But when, there's no answer for that, but sometimes they have a very bad combination, and when I have to stitch on a different combination, a bad combination, then that's like a agony. So there's no answer for that. Usually stitching single layer shouldn't create any finger pain too. But anyway, so that's that. I will stop here. After all, I stitch 1 hour with talking 1 hour. Thank you so much for being here. This is the last live, as I said, this is the last live streaming on 2023. I really appreciate you coming to the live streaming throughout this previous year, and I will continue offering this live streaming every Thursday night in 2024 as well. So I hope you have a good night tonight, and then I hope you have a very fantastic, happy new year. And then I will see you on the next Thursday, which is going to be in 2024. All right, have a good night. Bye-bye.